Welcome back to the Prime Focus Goalkeeping channel. I'm Brandon Miller, your host, and today we're going to talk a little bit about dipping balls. We're going to talk about 3 tips that will help you deal with dipping balls a little bit better. All right, so first thing that we're going to talk about, we see it a lot with our goalkeepers. Those dipping balls come in and they stay way too high, right? They don't get low enough. So that's the first thing Coach Pablo is going to show us is dealing with the dipping ball, getting a little bit lower instead of trying to deal with the ball here. How do we get a little bit lower so that we can get down to the height of the ball that's coming in, right? So as the ball's coming in, Coach Pablo is going to see he's going to get low enough instead of standing just straight up and that ball comes in, right? So we want to see as that ball comes in, how do we get low enough to keep our body behind it so that there's a place for it to come in. Now, that's going to lead to tip number 2. Right, you've got to give it an area to come into. We like to call this the basket catch. I'm not really sure what every other coach wants to call it, but the basket catch, right? Giving it the basket to come into. A lot of goalkeepers get caught a lot of times trying to catch with their hands up here, or it ends up bouncing off their forearms because they're not giving it the proper area to come into. Another issue that we see, those elbows are too wide, right? So if the basket doesn't have a bottom, well then the ball is just gonna fall right through, right? So that's a big issue there, because a lot of times goalkeepers have their elbows too wide, right? Sometimes they have their elbows in, but they're just relying on their forearms for that ball to then bounce off of, and then sometimes they just go with their hands. So looking at Coach Pablo here, ball's coming in, he's keeping his elbows a little bit tighter, and he's letting that ball come into the basket, as opposed to sometimes with the forearms, it just goes off the forearms there because goalkeepers don't actually create the basket, they just put the barrier there, right? They just want to block the ball as opposed to securing it. And that leads us to our third point. The third point, okay? Third point being, you gotta secure the ball, right? We've gotten lower, we've created the basket, and now we have to secure the basket. We gotta put the lid on the basket. We gotta close the basket, right? A lot of times, like we just talked about, goalkeepers will have that area there, but they don't finish it off. And so the ball comes in and it just bounces off, as opposed to using our hands to control it in there, right? So ball comes in, he gets low, he has the basket, and he finishes off with secure hands, right? So let's think about the 3 tips that we have. We've got to get a little bit lower, right? It's not so much about standing up. Goalkeepers get caught in their set position high, and then that ball comes in, and they try to go here because they're not nimble enough to get lower. Second thing, we've got to create the basket. We've got to create the area that the ball can come into. It can't just be a flat area that we're just trying to block the ball. We want to catch these. We want to secure these. And that's the last thing. We've got to get our hands around so we can secure the ball and actually control and hold it, okay? So those are the 3 tips that we have for dealing with dipping balls in. We're going to see a few from our feet and see how Coach Pablo adjusts to the different heights and focuses on those 3 different aspects, right? So from our feet, ball comes in, it bounces in, Coach Pablo gets low enough. Notice how he puts his knee behind it just a little bit, just for a little bit more security. It's about getting low enough. It's about creating that basket. It's about securing it. All of that, whoop, poor service for me. All of that for a basket catch, right? All of that to secure this ball that's coming at different heights. So that's all we got. Those are our 3 tips that we have for dealing with dipping balls, right? Obviously, the ball's coming one side or the other. We got to move our feet, but we got to focus on getting low, giving it an area to come into, and then securing it. So that's all we got for now. Let me know what you think in the comments. If there's something different you all do that you find a little bit more efficient and effective, let us know. Share it with our group. But until next time, stay focused.